Hey everybody, it's Mr. Buro from Staten Island Tech, and today we're going to be talking about a bunch of modify commands such as move, copy, scale, mirror, offset, and rotate. All of those commands are very similar to each other, which is why I feel comfortable introducing all of them to you at the same time. I have a couple of objects drawn on the screen just to speed things along a little bit. We're going to start with the move command. As in most commands in AutoCAD, it doesn't matter if you select the object first or select the command first. Just to show you that really fast, I'm going to select this cyan square and hit the move command. And then after I do that, it will ask me to specify a base point. Many things in AutoCAD will ask you for a reference of some sort. I could move this thing by picking really any point on the screen and it will be in reference to that. So I'm just going to randomly click somewhere to the upper left-hand portion of the square, not even on the square or in the square, but somewhere randomly over here. And once I do that, as you can see, the cyan square is now sort of attached to my cursor from that particular point. And I can move it anywhere I want from there. That's what the base point is for. So typically, if it doesn't matter, you just click anywhere you want that's near the object and you move it along, and that's fine. But often you will want to select a certain point. For instance, if I wanted to move this square, this time I'm going to select the command first. I'm going to now select the object, accept my selection by pressing enter. Now, let's say I want to move this square from its lower left-hand corner because I have the intention of referencing another lower left-hand corner or an upper right-hand corner, or like a center point of some sort. So if I'm going to select that as my base point, the square is now attached to my cursor at that point, and I can go ahead and dump it at the center of the circle if I want to, or the quadrant of the circle if I want to, maybe at one of these endpoints, which I'll do, or anywhere else. As long as I could snap to something that makes sense. I can do that right there. I've snapped it to the endpoint of that line. Maybe for this square, I'll also select it, but I am going to move it not really with the mouse. I do have to still select the base point, and I can do anything to select the base point. I could type it, or I can click with my mouse. I'm going to randomly click anywhere this time because it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say to myself, I think I'm going to move this square 15 spaces to the left. And to do that, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be using relative input on the keyboard. So I'm going to click a random place. Now the square is actively moving. And I'm going to leave my mouse and type -15, comma, 0, and it will slide 15 spaces to the left. And again, if my base point is randomly selected, the new base point or the new place of the square is automatically going to be 15 spaces to the left because that's what I specified. I could do the same thing referencing the origin. So for instance, if I move the square again, press enter, and now I could reference the origin by typing 0, 0. So now the origin is my base point. So the distance from the square to the cursor is exactly the distance that it used to be from the origin. And I can go ahead and move the square like that, either with keyboard input or by clicking somewhere with the mouse. You could move multiple objects at the same time as well. If I wanted to move both of these lines, for instance, I can just hit the move command, select both lines, press enter, pick a base point. Maybe I want to move them the distance of the top portion of this rectangle. So actually, after selecting both lines, I will click the upper left-hand corner of the rectangle and then move them that distance by clicking the upper right-hand portion of the rectangle. So I move them to the right, the exact distance of the upper edge of the rectangle. So you can do a lot of things like that. Pretty much solve any problems regarding measuring when you're trying to perform a modify command. The copy command is exactly what it sounds like. It behaves exactly the same way as the move command, except you're copying an object. So the original object is not harmed. For this example, I'll use the green rectangle. I will select the green rectangle, press enter, and then choose a base point. In this case, I want to pick the lower left-hand corner of the rectangle because I want to create like a little bit of a pattern. I'm going to move over to some empty space up here. I'll drop this green rectangle down, copying it. Let me zoom out so you can see that. Oops. So there's the original. I'm going to copy it here. Original stayed. And I'll just keep doing it. Until I cancel the command, I can continuously dump out more and more of these rectangles wherever I like, whether they're in a pattern, overlapping each other, or just randomly landing. That's the copy command. The copy command can also be done with multiple objects. Base point works the same way. Everything else works the same way. That's the copy command. Now, let's talk about scale. Scale is an easy thing to understand at first. Let's talk about the red circle I have here. So I'll click the scale command, press my mouse so I can accept that circle. Then I need a base point for the scale. I think naturally most people consider the center of the base point of a scale. So I'm going to pick the center of the circle. And as soon as I start moving my mouse, you can see that I can scale it downward or I can scale it up. A scale factor of 1, as you would imagine, does not change the size of the object. Less than 1 would be shrinking the object. Greater than 1 would be making it grow. You can select with the mouse or you can just type the scale. So for instance, if I wanted to type the scale to make this circle twice as big, I'll do the same procedure and just type the number 2, and I increase the circle by a factor of 2. So that's pretty easy. However, you should really understand a little bit more about that. And for that example, I'm going to actually take a new set of 2 lines. I'm going to draw a line going here, and I'm going to snap a line to there, and then draw it kind of coming outward. So I drew sort of like an angle. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle that's tangent to both of those line pieces. So I'm going to click here and here. And now I just need a radius, which I'll do 1. And you can see that that circle fits nicely right inside these 2 lines. Now, the reason why I did this is so I can show you what happens with scale when you pick a different base point. So for this circle, I'm going to choose the scale command again, pick the circle only, and then I'm going to press enter to accept that selection and choose my base point as the bottom left-hand vertex. So the scaling is not going to occur from the center of the circle, rather it's going to occur from that vertex. And the reason why I did that is so you can see how it works geometrically related to that vertex with these 2 lines. When I click that, and then I start to move my mouse, you see that the circle is attached to those lines because the scaling is happening in reference to the base point that comes almost from like a vanishing point in that area. Okay, so I can scale it downward. And the more I scale downward, the closer it gets to my reference point, or I can scale upward. And that happens nicely. In the scaling process, by the way, I'll do the same thing. I have a context-sensitive option to copy it. So if I pick copy, now the original square is going to stay there, and I'm going to, the original circle is going to stay there, and I'm going to produce a copy of that circle. Only 1 copy comes out. So that's the scale command using a reference point outside. And there doesn't need to be any lines to make that happen. So if I just draw a random rectangle here, and then I want to scale it not from its center point, but maybe like one side over here, it's going to grow and shrink from that reference point. And of course, that reference point does not have to be on the object. It could be anywhere. That's the scale command. There's another option regarding scaling, which is a little weird, but just to show you kind of how it works, I will draw like a weird smiley face. I haven't done this in a while, so let's see if it works. And What I'm going to attempt is to scale by reference. So maybe I don't know how big I want something to be, but I'm going to scale it in reference to another object. For instance, I'm going to choose the scale command. I'm going to select this entire smiley face, and I'm going to press enter. Now I need a base point for scaling. It really doesn't matter where I pick again. I'm going to pick like right here. Then, as my scaling is active, instead of pressing a button or anything, I'm going to scale by reference. So scaling by reference means I'm going to scale with respect to a length that pre-exists. I'm going to click that reference. Then it goes back to the original object, and now it asks me for a reference length. I'm going to choose the left side of the mouth and then the right side of the mouth. And that distance, which happens to be something like 12.9, I'm just seeing that based on what's appearing on the screen, will change that line to be scaled up with a factor that's related to it. So by doing this, and let's say typing 15, now this line has a length of 15. See? So I was able to scale the entire smiley face upward with some random line length of 12 and change that random line length to 15 and scale the rest of the face up with the same factor. It's pretty interesting how that works. That's called a scale by reference. Next, let's look at rotate. I'm going to grab a couple of objects, this rectangle and let's say that rectangle. Didn't mean for them to be attached to each other. It's just detached them slightly. Good. So I want to rotate this object here. I'm going to pick the rotate command. I'm going to select it. I'm going to press enter. Now it asks me for a base point. If I select the center of the object, it will rotate naturally around itself. And I could do that with the mouse, or I could type an angle, such as 45 degrees. So that's easy. I can do the rotate command again. And instead of rotating around there, I can rotate around a vertex. And as you can see, now it's rotating around that vertex. And in addition to doing something like that, I could pick the copy command and not harm the original. And let's say I wanted to rotate that 90 degrees, I could type 90, and there, the new rectangle has been a 90-degree rotation around that vertex without harming the original rectangle. So when you rotate something, you don't have to rotate necessarily around the center of an object. In this case, I'm going to now rotate around the center of this object, and you can see how that works, where the rectangle is like kind of attached to that point and rotating around very nicely. And I just have to pick a number. This time I'll do like negative 180, and I'll flip it over, which by the way would have been the same as positive 180. So that's the rotate command. Lastly, or not lastly, I'm sorry. Next would be the offset command. In order to demonstrate the offset command properly, I have to show you a line. And I also have to show you a polyline. Like that. And I'm going to show you a rectangle. Like this. Actually in a circle. Now, with the offset command, it's kind of like a mixture between the copy command and the scale command. For instance, when I click the offset command, which is right here, shortcut O by the way, it asks me to select a distance by using the word through. You can select a distance by measuring with your mouse or by typing it. I'm going to measure with my mouse. Like I'm just going to click here and I'll click here, and that distance of 4.7 will be my offset distance. So that's been saved. Now, if I select an object like this line, I can move my mouse to the right or move my mouse to the left, and it's going to offset that line to the left or to the right. and that distance is saved, so I can click it again and again. Or upon clicking one of the lines, I could then hit the multiple button and then keep dumping them out as much as I like. So that was what happens when you offset a line. Now I will offset this circle using the same distance. So I'm just going to press enter to accept my distance. I'm going to select the circle and I'll offset inward. And this will keep going until it can't go anymore. I could also do it outward, of course. So now it's like the circle was scaled in addition to being copied. Same thing with this rectangle. And the same thing with this polyline. The polyline is one object. When it's one object, it's not really a big deal. When it's more than one object, it definitely is a big deal. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Here's another rectangle, but this one I'll make using just lines. And if I try to offset that rectangle, what happens, because it's made by lines, nothing special, all the lines end up overlapping each other. And that's not what I wanted. I would have much rather had this type of thing happen. So that's the offset command. It both copies and scales, and it tries to keep equidistant locus of points. That's how it works. And then finally, the mirror command. The mirror command is pretty simple. First, I'll draw a line over here, slanted. And then also to prepare for this, I'll draw another set over here. I'll copy this over and you'll see what happens there. I'm going to select the mirror command, select the objects I want to mirror, which is just this set array of polylines. Press enter. It says specify first point of mirror line. So there's no base point here. It's more of a line of reference called a mirror line. If I select any point on this line, you can see that the mirror process has begun. And if I want to select another point on this pre-existing line, you can see that that line did in fact behave as a mirror. I could select anywhere I want though, including making them overlap, but I'll select this line just in case you could see. Then after finishing my selection, it asks me a very quick question. Yes or no, do I want to erase the source objects? If I hit no, the original object stays, no problem. Maybe with this one, I want to do a mirror image over like a horizontal or a vertical line. So I'll pick mirror again, select the objects. I don't need to pick a line specifically. I'll just click anywhere in space over here. And as you could see, the mirror process has begun again, but I'll use ortho to force a vertical line and I'll click to accept. This time I will erase the source object. I'll press yes, and that set quickly mirrored over there to be exactly where it was before, but all reflected over that invisible line to show the mirror image. You could use a line on the object as well as a mirror line. So if I select these things and then I select on the particular object, like here and here, you could see that I mirrored that object onto itself. And I do have, in fact, an overlap over here. So that's pretty much it. That was move, copy, scale, mirror, offset, and rotate. Those are the modified commands that are over here. Move is M, C for copy. I'm sorry, CO for copy, R for rotate, MI for mirror, O for offset, and SC for scale. That's it. Thank you very much.